I'm Jeff Leeson, and this is the story of how I started doing comedy when I was 14 years old. I would go and watch Just for Laughs and comedy at Club 54 every day after school without fail. My goal of being a comedian really wasn't a thing then. I just was a fan. I loved all different styles, all different types of comedians. It was just something I had a huge passion for. So I was voted valedictorian. Valedictorian? I don't know. Sounds right. The person who makes a speech at graduation. I was voted that person. Not because I had great grades. I didn't even have good grades. I just could give a speech. And they thought I'd be good and sort of entertaining or whatever. So I do the speech. I throw in some jokes about the teachers and, parents. And it was a huge hit. Standing ovation. I remember I'm like 13. People start standing up, and I'm looking around and I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. Like, these people are standing. I have no idea why they're standing. I look over, the teachers are standing. I'm like, what is going on right now? For a second, I thought there might have been like an alarm I didn't hear, because it was really like I had never experienced anything like that before. And I remember in that moment being like, wow, like that feeling of whatever that is, I want that every day. But I didn't know what that meant. So one day, I'm sitting at home, I'm watching the stand-up, and I'm like, these guys are getting that feeling. One guy got a standing ovation, and I remember it sort of clicked for me. Like, it was Andrew Gross, by the way, who's an amazing Canadian comedian. And I remember he crushed that. People were just going nuts. Like, the audience was just going crazy. And then he got a standing ovation, and I just remember thinking, like, that's the thing. So I'm like, I wonder how you do this. Because I don't know if there was internet or if there was no Google. I know that for sure. I couldn't just Google that. It was like I had to make calls. I think I actually called. There was a phone number and an address at the end of comedy at Club 54. And I think I called them, and I was like, how do you do this? Like, not how do I be on the show, but just like, how do you do this? And it was at a bar, so it was just like a bartender, and they're like, what are you talking? Do you need reservations? Or like, what are you? And I'm like, no, I'm 14. And they hung up, because what do you, anyway, I understand. This isn't an angry thing at them. The point is that I found out you do 5 minutes. It's where you start. I lived in London, Ontario. They had a comedy club there. So I called them. I go to my mother. I say, Mom, I want to be a comedian. I say, you do amateur nights at a comedy club. That's how you do it. You do 5 minutes. She was very supportive. She was like, okay, cool. But you're too young. You're 14. I can't have you go into a comedy club. She went to this comedy club in London. Something happened where somebody got heckled, and it was like, she felt bad for the comedian. Something happened that way where she couldn't see me, her son, at 14, be like a sacrificial lamb. But, and this is what a huge credit here. This is really important for any parent to listen to, I think. She goes, but if this is what you want to do, let's do our own show, and let's invite, your friends. And I played hockey, so like your hockey team, the coaches, high school people, anyone, let's do that. If that goes well, and you like doing that, and you feel like this is still something you want to do, then, we'll work towards doing amateur night, which is like, looking back on that, like, I look back all the time and I think, holy shit, like, she could have squashed that immediately. You know what I mean? That could have been like, hey, this is what I want to do. And she's like, you're 14 years old. No. But she didn't do that. So she's like, let's do your own show. I'm like, okay, where would we do that? Her work had an auditorium. They had a microphone. There was like a kitchen area that had like a window sort of cut out, so you could treat it like a bar, so we could serve like snacks and drinks and stuff like that. Some guys I go to high school with, that I went to high school with, they have a band. They got involved, so they were like the opening band. I couldn't believe we did all this. Friends, family, like, I don't know. To me, there was like 300 people there at the time. Like, that's how I felt. Realistically, there's maybe like 27 people. I knew every one of them. I ended up doing, okay, now in comedy, like I said, 5 minutes. You do 5 minutes, right? I did 30 minutes. 30 minutes of what I thought was stand-up comedy at the time. And when I say I did 30 minutes, I mean I talked for 30 minutes. Maybe 4 of that was like mildly funny, and maybe like half of that, so like 2 minutes of it was like actual stand-up comedy that was like a bit and a, like could pass as stand-up comedy. So we do a second one of those, okay? On the second one, I get heckled somehow, and then there's a kid there, like a child. Somebody heckles, I deal with the heckle. The kid somehow gets involved. I asked him if he ever heard the word fuck or something like that. And because of the heckle, at the end of that show, I'm like, Mom, I think I'm ready. She's like, you know what? You've done 2 of these. They both went well. Someone heckled you. That was my concern. I think you're okay to go do it. So by this time now, I'm like just turning 16, and I'm very excited because I'm about to go do my first amateur night at a real comedy club. Thank you for watching this. This is just something that I told somebody this story once, and they said you should talk about that either on a podcast or you should do a video about it. And I never did. And that was like over a year ago. And I thought about it every day since then. You know what I mean? And I thought if I'm thinking about this every day since then, perhaps it's something I should do. And now we've done it. And I appreciate you being here for that. If you're on YouTube right now, it'd be cool if you subscribed. But you also don't have to, because I'm not a pressure salesman here and I'm not selling you anything. Let's say you want to watch another video and you also are interested to know when future videos are coming out. Subscribe and click the notification thing, and that'll tell you. But let's say you just enjoyed this video but you never want to see anything ever again. That's no problem. I'm not going to pressure you into subscribing at all. I appreciate you either way because you were here and you watched this, and if you're watching this now, you watched it all the way to the end. I can't be mad.